Hello, good morning, and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. You actually joined me in the Rivian right now, just out running errands, but I checked the weather, and it seems like the entire US is getting hit with a giant cold snap this week. So much so that it's going to be negative 22 degrees Fahrenheit near Cheyenne, where I do most of my efficiency testing. So, of course, I'm like, oh, so many videos we can film, but I've also received a ton of messages from you guys about, hey, it's going to be cold, you know, freezing temperatures in Florida. What do I need to do to take care of my EV in the cold weather? And honestly, there's not much you have to do, but I thought I'd make a quick video just to give you some best practices so that you don't brick your battery pack when it gets this cold. But I just want to assure you, all of the mass production vehicles that are out there have all been tested to temperatures way colder than what we're experiencing this week. However, there are some things you can do to better protect your battery pack and just good general knowledge in cold weather anyway. So let's touch on some of those. Let's touch on some of the testing that I want to do in this extreme cold. And yeah, just have a very quick video for you today. Well, it is currently 30 degrees, which feels nice and warm actually this morning. It's about 10 a.m. And yeah, let's talk first. You know, the title of the video is here's what to do if it gets cold. So let's get into that. And then I want to talk about the things that I'd like to do, you know, of course, in this cold temperature. Of course, if you have any ideas or things you want me to test, we're going to have 2 extremely deep freezing nights. And of course, you guys know all the cars that I own and we have access to, and I'm going to be doing a lot of experiments during those cold temperature nights, because it's really some of the coldest temperatures we've ever had here in the Front Range. So I'm really looking forward to this. But first, let's talk about battery care, health, and what to do. So the best thing you can do, ideally, is, you know, just put the car in the garage if you can. Now, we have more cars than we have garage space. Of course, we also have friends who live in apartments who don't even have home charging. So, you know, step one is like, if you can just throw it in a garage, live normally, don't think about it, just do that. Secondly, if it's going to stay outside, my recommendation is to not let it go below roughly 30 or 40% state of charge for an extended period of time. Low state of charge and really cold temperatures are not great for your battery pack. And so I would charge it maybe a little bit higher than you typically would. Now, I tend to charge my cars anywhere between, you know, 40 and 70% on average is where they live. I'll probably bump most of them up to 80%, just so we have more driving range in the cold, because of course the cold weather is going to limit the amount of usable capacity in the battery pack, as well as running your heater maxed out, the heated seats, heated steering wheel, and headlights and all that stuff. You're just going to be putting more drain on that car, more load on that car, and so you're going to have less range. For example, our e-tron can very easily go over 200 miles in the summertime without even trying. I charged it up to 90% the other day at a DC charger, and everything was warmed up, and it was predicting 125 miles. Now, of course, we were running the heater in the car, but like, okay, winter does have an impact more on some cars than others. I noticed that my Teslas don't really get hugely affected by cold weather. The Rivian doesn't seem to be hugely affected by cold weather, but that's some of the testing I'm going to do. So if you have a commute where you're using a lot of your battery pack, charge up a little bit more just for buffer. If you can leave the car plugged in, that's really the best solution. And even better than that, the best solution is to try and time it so that you can start your car's charging later on into the session. You don't want to just arrive home unless you're at very low state of charge. You know, make sure you're above 40%. But if you want to leave at 80 in the next morning, try and have it so it starts charging at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, so that by the time you leave on your commute, it's just completed charging. The charging process will warm up the car, warm up the systems, keep the fluid running in the high voltage systems, and honestly, you'll have better efficiency because the battery will be warmer and the car is pretty much ready to go. What you don't want to have happen, it's not the end of the world really, but what you want to try to avoid is big charge and then let it cold soak for the next few hours and then leave and go on your commute. Better to just have it charging and completing right when you're ready to go. Teslas have a function, for example, that you can set scheduled departure, and it will basically time your charging and your battery preconditioning and your cabin preconditioning to all start at that point. I know Audi has it, BMW has it, others have it as well. And so, yeah, maybe utilize that function when it's -20, -30 in some parts of the country. Going to get really cold, of course. Now, I have some friends of mine that cannot charge their car at home at all. They have to rely on either workplace charging or something like that. And there's really not much you can do in this case other than just making sure your car isn't very low state of charge. So they're probably going to charge up to 80, 90% at work, drive home. Car's probably going to sit at 70, 75% state of charge in the deep freeze. Totally fine. There's no risk of damaging anything in these temperatures. Again, most of these cars are cold soaked down to -50, -60, which is really, really, really cold, and colder than we're going to see this week. So I just know, for example, Volkswagen Battery Laboratory has a full car cold soaker when some of my colleagues went there in Tennessee, and they had an ID4 running at -60 inside this cold chamber. It's pretty cool. I'm not sure C or F, but either way, very cold. -40 I know is the same C and F. So yeah, if you're going to leave the car unplugged overnight, what I would do is just, try and get as much battery state of charge in there as possible. Precondition it before you go out in the mornings to drive it. Just let everything warm up. But then most importantly, I would really try to limit extreme acceleration or deceleration. I've been starting to hear some reports on, hammering the car when it's extremely cold can lead to some increased degradation. Now, of course, the car has safeguards in place. You'll probably notice either no regen or very little regen if your car sits outside in these temperatures, and that's fine. You really don't want much energy flowing into this battery pack at all when they're freezing. So don't plan on a charging session. If you DC fast charge to work or something like that, charge up the night before, because it may not even charge at all when it's that cold. It has to run a battery heater, and they may not be strong enough. Like my old Leaf may not have a strong enough battery heater to get it warm enough to actually accept a charge. So try not to drive the car too hard. You'll notice decreased power output and power input to the battery. Everything just moves slower when it's that cold in a battery pack. So try not to hammer the car too much. Just drive it gently, normally. It will probably be running its battery heater. One trick I might do actually is select a supercharger in the Tesla to force warm up the battery pack, just so everything comes up to temperature even quicker. But again, that does put a strain, at least in my car, on PTC heater for the cabin. The new cars have heat pumps like my Model S, and then of course it's running waste heat from the motors. It does strain the system a little bit more, but I like to have a warm battery when I drive. So there you go. You're going to notice decreased acceleration, decreased regen, nothing to worry about. Just try not to hammer it too much. Try not to DC fast charge the car unless you absolutely have to. But that is the quickest way to warm it up, of course, is just to put a constant intake load on it. The car's going to run max heat and everything. And I would say really not much to worry about. Just keep in mind, if you do short trips, your range will be greatly decreased as it runs the heater. And I really think it's going to be no major problem at all. So again, 30 degrees, 20 degrees, 10 degrees Fahrenheit, no problem for these cars. When we start getting into the -10, -15, -20, -25 Fahrenheit, ooh, okay. I honestly don't even have that much experience in those cold temperatures with these cars, which is why I'm so excited to get out and do some testing. I think the coldest I've had an electric car is maybe -15, -18 Fahrenheit. And that was just recently up in Finland, and it was no problem at all. It was great. Actually, charging sessions worked great. Chargers worked great. I definitely want to see how chargers react in this cold. I'm going to show up with warm batteries, cold batteries, all the stuff. So let's get into what I'm planning to do in these cold temperatures. Well, one test I really am looking forward to doing is actually parking my Leaf at a DC fast charger. I'll leave, of course, I'll park at a couple spots over, but enough where the cable can reach. And I'm going to let it sit at maybe 30% overnight, something. Again, because I don't really care about the battery in that car, whatever happens to it. It'd be interesting. I kind of want to recycle it with Redwood and put a new battery in it. I think that'd be a great video. So I don't care about the longevity of that car. Let's use it for experiments. What I want to do is let it cold soak, -20, let it really come down to temperature, and then plug it into the CHAdeMO charger and see if it accepts a charge at all or faults out, or I don't even know what to expect. I think it only has like a tiny battery heater in it. It has no battery cooling. So that'll be kind of interesting. The other thing I think I'm going to do is talk about efficiency. I actually want to run this Rivian at 32 degrees on a loop, and then I want to run it at -20 on a loop. And I might run 2 different loops at -20. I might run the first one cold soaked, and then I'll charge it and try and get it up to temperature, which would simulate more of a road trip. And then I'll run it warm battery, warm cabin, at that same speed and then on that same loop. I think it would be very interesting. Plenty more to do, of course. I think it's we should probably do that same test with our Model 3 and a supercharger to see if that charges, because of course Tesla has a much more powerful battery heater to look at how that works. I have a heat pump in my Model S, resistive heating in my Model 3, different cars, but maybe there's a story there. Really curious to see what you guys want to know about these cold temperatures. And yeah, just lots of videos to film, lots of cool stuff. Very rarely do we get the opportunity to film in this level of brutal cold. So there you have it, quick video, nothing to worry about if it's getting cold for your car. Maybe a little bit extra precaution, plug it in, try and time it so it completes charging right before you leave. Keep in mind, DC fast charging is going to be way slower than you're expecting, especially if your car doesn't have en-route battery preconditioning, which is sadly most electric cars on the road today. Maybe not in terms of volume, but in terms of models. So every Tesla, just put in the supercharger, it'll precondition. Rivian will do the same. Lucid has manual preconditioning. GMC Hummer EV has manual preconditioning. Utilize those functions if you need to charge. But yeah, I really am excited. Comment below with your experiences, of course, in this cold. If you have any other suggestions to other viewers, I highly recommend you go down below and read the comment section. So many experts watching these videos. And yeah, really appreciate everyone's input and feedback. Sorry for the very quick video today. We're actually going out and filming some more FSD beta driving stuff just after this with a follow car, so you can understand what the car looks like in its driving environment, which is really kind of fascinating. So many things to do. Can't wait. It's gonna get cold. And yep, see you on another one soon. Bye-bye.